SpaceX will build a vehicle that will land the first woman and next man on the lunar surface when NASA returns humans to the moon. Blue Origin and Dynetics filed complaints with the US Government Accountability Office on Friday, but they were refused. The businesses submitted their complaints in April after NASA chose SpaceX and gave it a $2.9 billion deal. It is the latest step in a years-long fight between the world's two richest men, Jeff Bezos, founder of Blue Origin, and Elon Musk, CEO of SpaceX. Although the Government Accountability Office, GAO, had until August 4th to make a judgment on the demonstrations, they did it on Friday. According to the GAO statement, in declining the complaints, GAO first found that NASA did not violate procurement law or regulation when it opted to make only one award. According to the release, NASA's announcement indicated that the number of awards the agency would make was contingent on the amount of funds available for the program. Furthermore, the announcement said that the winner might get many prizes, a single honor, or no award at all. NASA determined that it only had enough funds for one contract award when making its decision. GAO also determined that the amount of funds available for the program did not compel NASA to participate in talks, alter, or cancel the announcement. As a consequence, the GAO rejected the complainants' claims that NASA behaved illegally by awarding a single contract to SpaceX. Finally, GAO agreed with the complainants that NASA waived a requirement of the announcement for SpaceX in one restricted case. Despite this, the decision determines that the complainants were unable to determine any plausible likelihood of competitive bias as a result of the little disparity in the evaluation. The conflict is around NASA's Human Landing System, or HLS program, which sought to have at least two private sector businesses compete to build a spaceship that will carry people to the lunar surface for the agency's Artemis moon landing missions. But what is NASA's Artemis program? In case you forgot, that is the mission announced in 2017 under the Trump administration and named in 2019. Artemis program aims to return US astronauts to the lunar surface for the first time since the Apollo 17 mission in 1972, including landing the first woman and the first person of color on the moon. The Biden administration has voiced support for the program as well. But while Trump's team pushed for a crewed mission to the moon's surface in 2024, Congress has not provided the amount of funding for the program that NASA says would be needed for that timetable. Due to a smaller budget than requested, the delays during the development of the SLS rocket and other parts of the program, NASA is re-evaluating its soonest date that it could launch people on a lunar mission. The Artemis 1 mission, which will launch no sooner than late 2021, will be an uncrewed test flight of the Orion and SLS. Artemis 2 will follow, using SLS and Orion to fly a crew around the moon and back, but not land, similar to 1968's Apollo 8 mission. Then, Artemis 3 will use the SLS, Orion, and SpaceX Starship to complete the journey to the moon's surface. To fly the 250,000 miles to the moon, astronauts will travel on NASA's SLS heavy lift rocket and Orion deep space spacecraft. The plan then calls for Orion to dock with the Human Landing System, which is what NASA selected SpaceX Starship for. This spacecraft will wait in lunar orbit up to 100 days before the astronauts arrive and then land them on the surface. To return to Earth, the crew will launch off the moon on Starship, transfer back onto the waiting Orion spacecraft, and fly home. Anyways, let's get back on topic. In the meantime, NASA made the unexpected announcement that it will proceed with SpaceX as the project's sole contractor, citing cost as a major factor in the decision. In their objections, both Blue Origin and Dynetics claim that NASA had failed to properly analyze their proposals, pleading with the space agency to reconsider. The administration has 100 days to decide whether or not the demonstrations were justified. Pushback against such procurement choices is frequent, particularly in the aerospace sector, where rocket makers' major clients are NASA and the US military, and winning or losing awards may have a significant influence on the company's bottom line. According to a Blue Origin representative, "We stand firm in our belief that there were fundamental issues with NASA's decision, but the GAO wasn't able to address them due to their limited jurisdiction. We'll keep pushing for 2 instant suppliers because we feel it is the best option. We've been encouraged by congressional moves to add a second supplier and increase funding for NASA's mission returning Americans to the moon." NASA Administrator Bill Nelson's comments, according to the company, were also very encouraging. During the last week that reinforced NASA's initial goal to allow concurrent competition, the Human Landing System program needs competition now rather than later because it is the greatest option for NASA and our country. The decision by the GAO is seen by the space agency as a means to continue forward with the SpaceX contract and return humans to the moon. According to NASA, the decision allows NASA and SpaceX to set a schedule for the first crewed landing on the moon in more than 50 years. According to the NASA statement, sending American astronauts back to the moon for the first time since the Apollo program and establishing a long-term presence on the moon is a priority for the Biden administration and is vital for preserving American leadership in space. Despite obstacles, NASA and its partners have made tremendous progress on Artemis in the previous year, including a successful hot fire test for the Space Launch System rocket. An uncrewed Artemis 1 mission is planned for this year, with a crewed Artemis 2 mission scheduled for 2023. NASA is moving quickly, but astronaut safety is paramount, and the agency will not jeopardize the crew's safety in the relentless pursuit of the objective of establishing a long-term presence on the moon. The agency also stated that it would provide an update on the future of the Artemis program, the Human Landing System, and the proposed return to the moon in the near future, and that it would continue to work with the Biden administration, Congress, and commercial partners to develop a sustainable approach to lunar exploration. Blue Origin suggested forming a national team for the HLS program, which would include regular government contractors like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin to develop a lunar lander, particularly for servicing NASA's planned space station Gateway in orbit around the moon. Dynetics made a similar suggestion. SpaceX, on the other hand, proposed utilizing their Starship, a massive spacecraft and rocket system presently under development in South Texas. Starship is a heavy-lift rocket that is currently being developed by SpaceX. The full rocket will consist of 2 pieces, a 230-foot-tall booster called Super Heavy and a 165-foot-tall upper stage called Starship. Together, the booster and upper stage of the rocket are known as Starship. In a departure from past launch vehicles, the goal is to build a rocket that can launch and land itself. The company's Falcon 9 rocket, which NASA uses to take astronauts to the International Space Station, or ISS, has a booster stage that can achieve this feat, allowing it to be reused. During missions to the moon, the Super Heavy booster will help launch Starship off Earth and on its way to lunar orbit, where the upper part of the rocket will wait to ferry astronauts to the surface using its own engines. Starting in December 2020, SpaceX has launched 4 prototypes of the Starship rocket on high-altitude flight tests. So far, Starship rockets have flown as high as 41,000 feet, but each of the prototypes exploded during attempted landings. NASA said that its award requires SpaceX to perform an uncrewed demonstration of a lunar landing before shuttling people to the moon. Although the primary objective of SpaceX's Starship is to transport humans to Mars, the firm has proposed that a modified version can be used to support NASA's Artemis lunar program. Though the vehicle will theoretically be capable of transporting humans straight from Earth to the lunar surface, NASA intends to utilize it in conjunction with its own rocket and spacecraft, the SLS and Orion. During a news conference earlier this year, NASA officials stated that the current plan is for SLS to ferry passengers to the moon's orbit. Then, the crew would transfer to the Gateway space station, and finally, SpaceX's Starship will transport the astronauts to the moon's surface.